Let's do it for the legend Shannon Sharpe. Let's reach his jersey number in subscribers here at the channel. Just 189 away from reaching 8,400 in subs. I appreciate everyone that's already subscribed, but if you haven't already, don't do it for me, do it for Sharpe. On today's show, we're going to look at some Broncos sleeper breakout candidates. Matthew Peterson from Chat Sports here on the Broncos Breakdown, talking about some defense. We're looking at the defensive side of things. We'll save the offense and all their glory for another day. But let's look at some, not breakout candidates, but sleeper, right? The second level of maybe people aren't looking at enough, but when August and September rolls around, you'll be smarter for watching this video knowing, oh, I knew that guy was going to ball out. Speaking of that guy, what about Caden Sterns, right? Second-year player out of Texas who I thought looked great in his rookie season. He was awesome in the preseason, him and P.J. Locke pretty much. But Caden Sterns last year in year number one, first off, let's just go back down memory lane to the Broncos-Cowboys game at Jerry World where Caden Sterns had an interception, his second of the season, 2 altogether. This is a player that really showed a lot of promise and potential in year one, but here's what I'm really excited for about in year two. There's a new sheriff, a new regime in town, and under Hackett and Evero, it's going to benefit Caden Sterns a ton. In fact, compare the Broncos safeties last year to the Rams safeties last year, because that's where Broncos DC Evero came from, and you'll see there's a big difference between these two, right? The Rams use a lot more safety sets. I mean, Nick Scott, their third safety, got double the amount of snaps that Caden Sterns, the Broncos' third safety, got. So clearly, Evero is going to have a bigger role for his safeties now in Denver. We're going to see a lot more dime packages, a lot more 3 safety sets, and that's what's going to benefit Sterns a ton. I thought he would be the number 2 safety, right, alongside Justin Simmons. They bring K-Jack back, and honestly, maybe midway through the year, you see a bit of a changing of the guard, and Sterns starts to get more reps and more snaps than Kareem Jackson does. But still, Caden Sterns, his role in this defense will expand greatly under Evero as the defensive coordinator. Speaking of defense, we've asked this question before on the show. It's been a while, and we've picked up some new subscribers, so I want to bring it back. But who was your favorite defensive back? Was it the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater, or was it Champ Bailey? Let me know. Put their jersey number. I know it's hard to pick, it's like saying do you like mom or dad more, but let me know which one it was your favorite defensive back by putting their jersey number down below in the comments. Speaking of corners, what about Michael Ojemudia? This is a guy that I have really high expectations for, and high hopes, because what he did in his rookie season, for example, coming out of Iowa, he showed a lot of promise of, this was a great day 2 pick for the Broncos. Last year, he gets hurt, and then you just didn't see him until the end of the year. It was a little bit confusing. You didn't get much out of it just because the team had bigger issues than asking about the third string safety or third string corner and when Ojemudia is going to return. But just 2 games last year. But in year one, he had some great plays, 4 forced fumbles. He was making plays left and right. So let's get back to 2020 Ojemudia. He showed a lot of promise, like I said, in his first season. And with Kyle Fuller out of the way now, there's going to be a much more bigger opportunity for him to make some plays and get on the field, because just go through the lineup really quickly. Surtain, Darby, I think it's Ojemudia, right? You have K'Wan Williams working in the slot. But in terms of outside corners, Ojemudia versus Damari Mathis, there's so much depth at this cornerback position, and that's something we've learned has been the calling card of George Paton. He stockpiled on DBs last year. Probably should have traded Fuller, but hindsight's 2020, of course. No one wanted him in November. But regardless, I think Ojemudia will have a nice bounce-back season this year in 2022. Moving on to the next player, speaking of trades and whatnot, what about Jonas Griffith? That was a player that no one knew, right? When the Broncos and the Niners struck a deal to send Griffith over for a future, a future 7th or 6th swap? Who gives a shit? But Jonas Griffith has been tapped by a lot of people who cover the Broncos as a potential hidden gem on this defense. Right now, he's not the starter. I think if you had week 1 tomorrow, he would not be one of the starting inside linebackers. It'll be Jewell and Singleton. But if he continues going into this season, the way he ended last year, I mean, Pro Football Focus had him as one of the best linebackers. 69.1 overall grade is not just a nice score. It is a great score, okay? Especially for a guy who was traded for a 7th-round pick, and all you saw in him was, hey, he can help out in special teams. We are dog shit at special teams. Let's bring Jonas Griffith over. So that's why I'm that's why I'm a big fan of what Griffith can do. Then you look at the inside linebacker depth chart right now, and it's not like these are names that Jonas Griffith cannot steal a job from. Josie Jewell, 2-year, $11 million contract. He's going to be, more than just penciled in for a starting job. But Alex Singleton and Jonas Griffith, that might be a training camp preseason battle for the starting job. Singleton started about over half the games for the Eagles last year after kind of graduating from special teams. But at the end of the day, Griffith has a great opportunity with the Broncos, because not often are you at the, if you're a player like Griffith who, journeyman, special teams guy, just trying to get some real starts in this league, and you land on a roster where there's not really any big competition at the same position group, he could make some noise and he could really, emerge as a candidate to start for the Broncos. Now, a couple weeks ago, we had this challenge to start the show. If you hate the Chiefs, like the video. If you hate the Raiders, like the video. If you hate the Chargers, like the video. And we got to about 450 likes. I want to demolish that number. Let's get to 500 likes. Let's set a channel record for likes on a video. And if you don't fall under one of these 3 categories, I can't help you. 4th and out of 5 breakout candidate, DeShawn Williams. I was about to say final. We got one more on the to-do list. But let's talk about DeShawn Williams, because he's got an awesome story, first off. If you don't know it, we will outline all the steps he made in just a moment. But last year for the Broncos, if you remember, he had an elbow injury in Week 8, and had it not been for that elbow injury, he would have started the last 10 games of the season. So the stats may not jump out to you, but I think he was really building something going into this year. It's a shame it got cut short at the very end, but he was starting to become a more dependable and not just a rotational player on that defensive line. But going back to Williams' career, it's an awesome story. It is a story of someone who hustled and worked hard and continued to grind. He was an undrafted free agent out of Clemson, goes to the Bengals, then he's jumping around a little bit, ends up on the Broncos practice squad, the Dolphins practice squad, and the Colts practice squad all in the same year. Then he gets back to the Broncos for his second stint in 2019, only cut before the 53-man roster. He ends up with the Calgary Stampeders 2 years ago, doesn't have a long stint even in the CFL, comes back to the Broncos for his 3rd stint, and then in 2020, Week 5, he makes his first career start. If you remember, he picked off Cam Newton in the Broncos-Patriots game 2 years ago. Remember Cam Newton on the Patriots? Like, that's going to be trivia that people remember, but, it's just still weird to think about. An awesome story. At the end of the day, a fantastic story for this player, and I think he really could make some noise on this defensive line, because you lost Shelby Harris. You have Draymond Jones. I mean, we'll look at the whole depth chart in just a moment, but there's a real avenue and opportunity for him to emerge as a starting defensive end for the entire 2022 season. The NBA draft is in the books, but the NBA free agency, just extravaganza is coming up. So make sure you are locked in with Chat Sports for the best NBA free agency coverage. YouTube.com/ChatSportsTV. I've got that link in the comments and the description. We will be live for the entirety of the NBA free agency. Just whirlwind. So starting on June 30th, make sure you are locked in. So any Nuggets fans out there, join us for free agency here at Chat Sports. All right, let's get on to my 5th and final breakout candidate. It is Baron Browning. I know, I've got some nerve going with Baron Browning. Don't put your tomatoes down, because we did a video the other day about it. Wasn't even my idea. It was Bleacher Report suggesting trading Browning to the Jets for a 3rd-round pick. And I said, you know what? For a team that's only got 5 picks next year, yeah, I would take a 3rd-round pick. But that only ended in an absolute comments massacre. But Browning, like a lot of you guys pointed out, and I knew this too, I wasn't dumb, he ended the season quite well. After basically being a non-factor for the first third of the season, first half of the season, he ended on a strong note, 9 starts down the stretch. he played majority of the snaps. I mean, 78.6. There was one week where he got hurt in like the first quarter and didn't return to the game. But outside of that, there were a handful of games he played 100% of the snaps, 2 tackles for loss. He showed a lot of potential down the stretch his rookie season. The only, I don't know if I call it even an issue, but the conundrum I run into was that they moved him from inside linebacker to outside linebacker. And you're pretty loaded at that spot, right? Chubb, Gregory, Benito, Reed. Hell, I even like Jonathan Cooper, speaking of Ohio State, last year. So maybe what they end up doing is I'd be curious to see if they want to move, say, Malik Reed, for example, to defensive end, because that's a lot of depth right there at that one position. And you're kind of skinny at inside linebacker, which I always thought the move from Browning was a little, confusing, that you took him from a position that you don't have much depth at to a position you now have plenty of depth at. But it'll be interesting to see what Evero does with this defense and ultimately really how he lines it up, because no offense to DeShawn Williams, I know we just talked about him, but, I mean, there are, if you could have Chubb, Gregory, Malik Reed, and maybe even Nick Benito or Baron Browning on the field at the same time, it would be hard to pass that up. So we went over 5 sleeper candidates for 2022. Let me know what your sleeper candidate is for this season. You can't just say Jerry Jeudy. That's not a sleeper. That's too easy. Try to go a little step below that. Let me know who you think someone's going to break out that no one else is looking at. That's going to do it for us on today's show. I appreciate everyone that tuned in, made us a part of your day. Hope you guys all have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see you later with more Broncos news and rumors.